Hey gang, Ronin here. Welcome on back to the Retrocade. It's Sunday, and that means it's time for another Suckerpunch Sunday, where we go back to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation and play a classic fighting or fighting platform-based game. If you've been enjoying the content on the channel, as always, best way you can show it, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, ring the bell to be notified of the latest content. I do apologize, we did have a sports Saturday planned for yesterday, but due to technical difficulties beyond my control, I ended up losing enough time in my day that I wasn't able to find a different game to play. It was more of an issue with my emulator than anything else. Just one of those things that I wasn't exactly planning to do, but it's what it is. So, for this Suckerpunch Sunday, we're going to go back to 1995 and play one of the original fighting games from the original PlayStation, which is, as you can see, Battle Arena Toshinden 1. This game came out in 95, was released by Tamsoft through Takara, and was the first big-time fighting game to be put on the PS1. This is before Tekken, it's before Soul Blade, it's before everything else that we know and love in the Sony catalog as far as fighting or fighting platform-based games go. And because it came out as early as it did, it is considered kind of an archaic title now by modern standards, which is why I want to go back and give it a visit, because when it first came out, it was the game that really broke us out of the idea, especially on the PlayStation, of the standard 2D fighting platform game or fighting game that we all knew with Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2, obviously, and games like that. Now, to be fair, we also, by this point on the games like the Sega Saturn, we had the Virtua Fighter series. There were games that were starting to branch out, but because the original release catalog for the Sony PlayStation was so limited, there were, if I remember right, maybe... Goodbye. If I remember right, I think there were 10 games that came out among the initial wave that Namco released in 95 when the PlayStation went live in the US. And again, this isn't a Namco game, so it was a little bit different, but this kind of filled the niche of having a fighter that we could utilize until we got updated versions of Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat and all the other games, and Tekken started really developing from Namco about a year later, if I remember right, the original Tekken came out on the PS1. Now, as you can see, this isn't a very complicated game. It doesn't reinvent the wheel in terms of combat or gameplay. I will tell you, because you have to use the D-pad in order to move around and not a control stick, because the DualShock had not been perfected yet. It hadn't even been released on the PS1. It does make the controls and navigating Mondo and getting him to do what I want him to do a little bit tough. And as I've already been taken down. Now, like most standard fighting games, it's best 2 out of 3 falls wins. You know, the formula was well and truly locked in by this stage, and there was no reason for Takara or Tamsoft to say, okay, well, let's completely do it differently. You have your punches, you have your kicks, you have your heavy attacks, you have your light attacks. And you just go. It's you figure out what you can do to knock your opponent out. Ow. Unlike Soul Blade, I don't think you can get a ring out, although if I can get him over to the side and knock him out like that, we may disprove that. It may be a lot easier than I thought, but you have 8 characters to choose from, so in that respect, it's not much different than the original Street Fighter 2 of you've got a limited amount of characters, you have more that you can unlock later on. And if you push back, that allows you to assume a defensive posture and block. But you got to be careful because if you're not, if you leave yourself open, you can get hit with traps like that. You can also do rolls and try and get out of the way like she's doing with the cartwheel evasions. You don't really have a parry in this, but... Ooh, nice boot to the head there. I haven't played this game in a really long time. In fact, I don't think I've played it in more than 25 years. But when it first came out on the PS1, man, we were all over it. Boot to the head. Sit down, girl. Because it was something fresh and new. You could utilize weapons, which, unless you had the ability on the 16-bit consoles, or if you knew somebody who was lucky enough to have a Neo-Geo, and they had a good version of Samurai Showdown, that was your best bet as far as getting anything, as far as fighting games go with a weapon. Other than that, you're playing Street Fighter, you're playing playing Mortal Kombat, you're playing Virtua Fighter, or again, if you knew somebody who had a Neo-Geo, you could play King of Fighters, or even Last Blade by that stage. But it's a game that hasn't aged all that well. And there were sequels. They did Battle Arena Toshinden 2. Okay, you do get ring outs in this game. I wasn't sure if you did or not. But Battle Arena Toshinden 2 came out a little bit later on in '95. So they churned these games out. Did Tamsoft and Takata. Ow. Batter up. Fine, I will flip kick you. And that still didn't help me from getting clubbed to death. This also wasn't an exclusive to the PlayStation, although it came out on it first. It did also be released on the Sega Saturn. You can get it on your PC even. They did a Game Boy version, they did a PSP version of it. And then in later variations, they released it for the PS3 and the PlayStation Vita as kind of legacy titles. Fine, I will just kick you. There is a storyline to this game, and like most things, it revolves around the first character that you get. If I remember right, his name is Eiji. E-I-J-I. Now I skew you and slam you, jerk. Oh, I got him just he was about to do a special move, and then I poke him to death. Yeah, but the main character in this game, his name is Eiji Shinjo. And he's looking for his brother, Sho. And he enters this tournament in the Battle Arena, which is called Toshinden. That's it. So, like most fighting games, there's not a massively complicated storyline or plot. If you're looking for nuance or subtleties or things like that, or massive character development, you're barking up the wrong tree. Stringing combos together is not easy because it all depends on which way you are facing. So when you're facing a lug like Rungo with this big freaking stone club of his... Ow. Oh, he swung and got me from behind with that. Oh, and I got him with just a hair of life left. Wow. Okay. Now, Mondo is a Japanese ninja warrior. He sneaks into the tournament And he's looking for his rival, who they don't give his name to, at least not in the wiki that I'm following on this. But you can also see where a lot of the influence that Namco took when they started developing Soul Edge / SoulCaliber / Soul Blade, which, if you've been following this series, is a game we've played already. But having a knight, having a ninja, having a big burly guy like Rungo, and having a stalwart Japanese warrior like Eiji. And that's not to suggest in any way that Namco basically pinched the idea. When you're doing fighting games like this, you're pulling from a limited pool of resources. And it always stands up with the historical debates that I have had with friends of mine, and I have seen played out in many television shows and Saclo. So Duke is French. You cannot tell from his ridiculous accent. Oh man, as he launched me out of the ring, I was toast anyway, but that just added a little bit of salt in the wound. But it's always been the long-standing debate among people who like martial arts and who have studied history and different cultures and things of that nature of, if you take a European knight and put him up against a samurai in a straight one-on-one fight, who wins? Because the knight's going to have the benefit of having steel armor or plate armor on, whereas a samurai is going to have the mobility, he'll have the flexibility, he'll have a better weapon potentially with his katana versus a standard European's broadsword. Natstrak. What sucks is I'm going to have Duke's voice in my head for the rest of the day, because I haven't played this in so long. I know I'm going to be sitting here doing stuff later on, and all of a sudden it'll be, I will find myself talking like this. And that's not... Which... I say that not to necessarily to be, you know, intentionally pejorative towards people of the French culture or language. I learned French actually when I was in first and second grade high school, first and second grade elementary school, because I had to go to a Catholic school in Massachusetts, and they're like, well, you're going to learn how to speak French, which in turn taught me how to essentially speak just more bad English. Susan! You'll also notice that they didn't spend a whole lot of time on things like soundtracks, or there's no cutscenes in this. You just get straight to the fighting. There's no bonus levels or anything like that. If you remember from Street Fighter, where you got to bash the car in, or even World Heroes, where you had to carve out the statue, if I remember right, out of a big chunk of rock. No, you just you pick your next character, or you pick your next opponent, and then you're on your way. And Eiji is having his way with me here. Oh, that wasn't even fair. He took me down in about, what, about maybe 90 seconds? Well, I tried to block that slide, didn't help. Fine, I kick you in the head. Ow. That dash attack of his is pretty strong. Now you have to double tap if you want to try and get out of the way. And if you can hit him... Oh! Wow! Holy cow, that was an ultimate attack right there.
No problem.
Clearly. I had you dead to rights. Oh, I cannot let him hit me with that ultimate attack again. Now, in order to roll out of the way, you have to double tap down really quick, but you can't... Oh, and he got me again! He got me again. Wow. Okay. Each character has a special attack. I don't have the faintest idea what Mondo's will be. Oh, man, AG is having his way here. I may just have to, about 15 minutes in as I check my clock. I may just have to pick a different character and see how far I can go. Now the back step, you have to double tap like you do if you want to roll. The problem with rolling is that you can't, you can't really determine which way you want to go. Because up, regardless of your position on the fighting board, is always jump. Oh, wow. Okay, well, Mondo's gotten me this far, but I'm going to see what I can do with somebody else. Now, in this version, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Overall, there are 5 unlockable characters. There are only 2 that are unlockable in the PlayStation version. In the Sega Saturn version, you could get one that was called Cupido. In the Game Boy version, you could get somebody called Uranus. And then in the PC version, you could unlock Earthworm Jim. So let's see. I haven't played Cayenne yet. I think I remember when I played this game way back when that I actually preferred Cayenne more than anybody else. And again, like most games of this nature, you need a foil for your hero character, so or in this case, or a contemporary. So, just as Ryu has Ken and Liu Kang had Johnny Cage and other characters in Mortal Kombat, in this game you've got Cayenne, who is essentially a slightly modified version of AG. Oh, swing low. Sweet chariot. Yeah. There we go. Sounds like you're saying about laying an egg. Ooh, I hadn't seen the flaming kick yet. Well, I don't have the flaming kick, but I can still knock you around a bit. And again, like most fighting games, the farther in you go, the higher the difficulty curve gets. Oh, as I get torched. And of course, I had a ring out. Problem. Battle 3. is part of me that would wonder if they updated this game, if it would actually do very well. But I think, really, and again, this kind of spoke to what I was talking about when we were covering Super Double Dragon last week, how franchises have a pretty limited shelf life. Yeah. You know, as far as I know, Tamsoft is still around. But the whole point behind Battle Arena Toshinden, as far as Sony was cared, was this game was designed to be a, and I'm quoting directly here, what made the PlayStation put an end to the Sega Saturn as a viable console in the mid to late 90s. And as history played out, it proved it was right because, goodbye, the Saturn didn't last much longer than, if I remember, I think 97, 98. Even though they did keep coming out with games and they were porting stuff over. Like I said, Toshinden was inevitably ported over to the Saturn. But the PlayStation just proved to be so much better as an overall system, and also as far as its catalog of games, and then the Saturn, that it dominated the 32-bit market pretty much out the gate. And that's not to say that other systems weren't good. I mean, obviously the Nintendo had the 64, and the 64 had great games on it. You know, among the most obvious ones, Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye, Super Mario 64. You know, you can go down the list. But there was something about the PlayStation being new and fresh from a company that hadn't, to that point, had any real interest in busting into the video game market. And Sony, obviously, and if you know the history of the PlayStation and the collaboration that was originally planned to make it a Nintendo console as a replacement for the 64, then you understand that Sony came into the market with a massive chip on its shoulder and something to prove. Because they felt slighted by Nintendo after the project or the collaboration went sideways. And if you think about it now, just the idea that a game that is this simple and rudimentary, ow, that hurts me just looking at him doing that. Oh. Okay, that's annoying. But as I was saying, looking at a game that by modern standards seems very simple and rudimentary had such an impact that it helped one company bring about... Alright, you cheating little runt. That's just annoying, that little chatter he has. Ow. But if it wasn't for how well games like this were received back 25 years ago, when the console first broke in and Sony first released the PlayStation, you think about how much different history may have ended up becoming. And he beats me with the boot. Let's see, where are we at? Well, we're about 25 minutes, so that, in a nutshell, is Battle Arena Toshinden for the PlayStation 1. It's worth a revisit if you've never played it. I would just tell you, understand that it's a lot different than modern fighting games. You're going to have to get used to playing with a D-pad as opposed to using a stick. There is no way to modify that, even if you go into the options, I believe, because it is hardwired in to the actual game itself. Again, because the DualShock was not a normal thing in 95 when the PlayStation first came out. The DualShocks didn't show up until really the end of the PS1 run into the PS2. So if you can get used to that, the graphics are what they are. There's nothing fancy about it. There's no big frills. You just go in, you fight, you move on. But if you're interested in the history of fighting games and you want to take a crack at it, go ahead. Or try Battle Arena Toshinden 2, which I admit I haven't played, but you would imagine that the graphics are a little bit better. There'd be a little bit more flexibility as far as the characters and the controls go. But, you know, if you like this sort of stuff, if you like SoulCaliber, if you like Tekken, if you like 3D fighting platform or fighting games, give it a whirl. So, and if you've enjoyed the content on here, as always, best way you can show it is hit that like button, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to be notified of the latest content. Also, we will be wrapping up our playthrough of the original Metal Gear from the special edition of Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. We will be wrapping that up tomorrow, promise, as I get back into the swing of things, even though it's a Memorial Day holiday, so I don't have any excuses for not getting it done. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at @Retrocade. Help spread the word and help us hit our goal of 100 subscribers as soon as possible. That way we can unlock the YouTube customization algorithm, make this channel bigger and better. And if there is a game you'd like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Master System, Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, SNK, Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below or drop me a tweet. Can be any game you want. As always, my name is Ronin. It's been great to spend this Sunday with you, everybody. Be safe, be well, have a great Memorial Day, and I will talk to you again as we wrap up our Metal Gear playthrough tomorrow. Bye.